kind of blooming fertilizer should I give it? Because I don't think there is a blooming fertilizer specially made for African violets. So, and how often should I give it the blooming fertilizer? I was thinking just to get the African violet fertilizer from Miracle Grow and fertilize the plant that way. But if any of you guys, especially Matt's Home Facts, if you have a suggestion, post a comment what I should do.
Incredible Isaac has asked me a few questions about African violets. I don't grow a lot of African violets, but I will do my best. One of his questions was what kind of fertilizer to use and when to fertilize. He had mentioned that he was using the Miracle Grow for African violets, and that's actually a really good fertilizer, so I would continue using that. I would water with fertilizer every single time you water. Now, one of the tricks to fertilizing one of the tricks to watering the African violets is don't get the leaves wet. They don't like to get wet. Water it when the soil dries out. So don't continually water on a regular basis, like every Wednesday or something like that. Feel the dirt. If it's still wet or soggy, then just leave it alone. One of the best ways to do it, actually, is just to grab a saucer or dish, put your African violet in the dish, and then fill up the dish with water. Let it sit for half an hour, 45 minutes, and then drain off the excess. Now, as far as getting nice, big, full blooms on these, I'm not the expert on that. I would assume just give them the requirements they need. Basically, a nice, bright, sunny place. Not too bright, like bright indirect sunlight. If you put them in the direct sunlight, you'll find that the leaves will burn. And they do like warm temperatures too, so keep them somewhere warm. One of the nice things about African violets is they're really easy to propagate. All you need to do is have some little pots, or you can use little plastic cups, whatever you've got, and just grab some trimmers. Trim off a nice healthy leaf, something like this. It's best to actually, if you can trim it on a 45-degree angle while you're taking it off the plant, that's great. I didn't, so I'm going to trim it on a 45 now, just so you get more exposure to the inside of the stem. And then slide that down into your potting mix. What you want to do is give that a good water. Put it in a tray or a container like this. And what I like to do is place a plastic bag over the top to create a little greenhouse, and it keeps it nice and warm. Pop that in a bright sunny place for a month or so, and you'll notice some new sprouts coming out right around the base of the leaf.
Next question is about my Phalaenopsis orchid. Now, it only has about 4 flowers on it. No, it had 5 flowers. One of the flowers fell off, so now it's 4. And I asked this this user on YouTube. Her name is Suniti on the channel. I don't know the channel name, and she said I should give the orchid some blooming fertilizer now while it's in bloom. It's almost finished blooming though, but I want to know, when should I apply it? Should I apply it like she said? Also, should I give it regular fertilizer, and when should I give it regular fertilizer? Because I went to Lowe's and got a big bag of Better Grow is the brand, and I asked the gardener at Lowe's, and he said you don't need to fertilize. There's enough nutrients in the medium. So I wanted to know, should I still fertilize it? And if I fertilize it with the fertilizer for the leaves, how often, and what, and when should I stop using that fertilizer and move on to the blooming fertilizer? That's my question. My fourth question is, if I wanted to repot my orchids, then, and it's not root bound. It doesn't have so much roots, and it's grown in moss. Can I put it in the exact same pot but just change the medium? Because I don't like growing it in moss. It keeps it wet for longer, and I don't like it because it all tends to get the roots, holds the moisture, and I don't really like it for the orchid, so I want to change it. Should I just put it in the same pot? Because if I put it in a bigger pot, they like being pot bound a little bit, and the bigger pot is about 2 to 3 inches bigger in diameter, and it doesn't have so much roots yet, so I think I should put it back in the same pot. So if any of you have suggestions.
Now, as far as your question goes about the Phalaenopsis orchid, if you want to repot the orchid, you can do it right now, or actually it'd probably be best to wait until after your flowers have died off, just so you can enjoy the flowers a little longer. This one here is actually also in the moss mixture, and I have to agree, I don't like it either. I find that the roots tend to rot a lot with the moss because it stays wet much longer. There's no real specific time of year that you should repot your orchid. If you want to repot it just to change the potting medium, that's great. The other times you'd want to repot your orchid is if it's grown out of the pot, or if the potting medium starts to go bad, or it smells weird. So yeah, I would do that. I prefer the bark mixture myself. Now, as far as fertilizing your Phalaenopsis orchid, I generally don't. If you want to use a blooming fertilizer, you can use a blooming fertilizer when you start to notice the bloom spikes coming up, or while it's flowering. Otherwise, I just leave them alone. I have not had a problem with my orchids not blooming without a fertilizer. And actually, I have a Phalaenopsis here with a little baby on it. I've actually been trying to grow a little baby on one of my orchids for a long time now, and it just hasn't happened. This one happened to be an accident. I had this one in the window, and this was actually a bloom spike. There was blooms on it ready to open, and when I shut the kitchen window, it broke off the bloom spike about here, and then it continued to grow a little baby plant. This plant actually isn't ready to be taken off from the mother plant yet. It only has one root on it right now, and it's too small. So I'm going to leave it on there for a couple more months, and hopefully by then I'll be able to replant it. I'm actually very excited about one plant that I have here. It's my Hoya plant. This is one that I've taken a cutting off of the parent plant, which is up there. I got the parent plant probably about 10 years ago when my grandmother passed away, and she always had it in a hanging basket in her window, and it would always bloom. And when she passed away, I took the plant, and I've been taking care of it ever since, and it's since I've had it, it has not bloomed, but I've taken several cuttings off it and produced more plants, and this one here has actually started to bloom, which is very exciting for me. This is the first time I've ever actually made a Hoya bloom. So hopefully in a couple more days they'll be open, if you can get a better look at it down there. Yeah, and hopefully in a couple of days it'll be open. Like my videos, subscribe to them. Just go to youtube.com, type in Matt's Home Facts in the search bar, then click search. Then click the Matt's Home Facts link next to one of my videos, then hit subscribe.